All right, guys, Mark here with Lawn Care Growth Academy. Hey, I'm going to show you how to use this seamless profit tool calculator. It's really easy, but of course we have to go over it somewhat slowly just to make sure we answer all the questions in one video. But I'm going to be looking over here, so it doesn't mean I'm ignoring you, but let's just jump into this and get this started really quickly, okay? So if you can see this tool right here, what we are going to do first, we have to accomplish two things. First, we have to accomplish the goal is to determine your entire overhead. So that's going to be your expenses and then also your labor. That way we know a per hour amount that you need to earn in order to make sure that when you visit a property or when you're spending time on a property, you are charging enough to cover that time. Now, of course, you also are going to need to factor in drive time. So throughout your day, you're going to need to say, hey, I'm going to visit 10 sites today. It's going to take me X number of hours, and it's going to be, 5 minutes or 10 minutes of drive time in between each one. But this is an awesome place to start just to make sure that you're charging enough for the actual time that you're working. That's really where people lose a lot of money, is that they may not even charge enough for the time that they spend on the property. And then you also have drive time in between there. So it can get kind of funky if you're not careful. So let's take a look at this. So what you're going to do over here, on the far left side over here, you're going to have your, let me get over here. You're going to have your, this is a sample. You're going to have, so what we're going to do, we're going to create this. We're going to start here. But what you're going to have is your actual overhead for what you spend here. So you may decide to list here the expense that you have. Maybe it's a mobile phone. And then over here you may have storage. I can type right. And then you may have various other monthly expenses. If it's going to be insurance and all of your things that you're going to list here. Okay. We'll go through this pretty quickly. So you have overhead here. Then you'll have the company, or you can take a note here if you just want to indicate it, shelter insurance or progressive insurance or whatever it may be. This is a place for notes, but this is going to be the amount that you spend. So let's say you have a $100 phone bill. You'll enter that in here just like that. If you pay $150 for storage someplace, you'll enter that in there. And likewise with insurance, you pay $500 for insurance. Now, what the frequency is doing here, this is where you may want to kind of list them in sequence. You may want to enter in all of the monthly fees. If it's in, so you would enter in 12 here. If it's monthly, mobile phone, you do monthly. And what this is going to calculate right next here, it's going to calculate how much that is for the entire year. So 12 times at this amount, it's going to be $1,200 that you're going to spend that year. So you're going to fill all of this out. You're going to change the frequency if it's something that you pay. Let's say it's something like, for us, we use lots of 50-in-1 oil. So if you use 50-in-1 oil mix, we will normally purchase about a gallon probably 8 times a year. So we get that on Amazon. So I would do, what do we pay for the gallon? Maybe pay $30 for it. And we'll do that about 8 times a year. So that's how we come up with the $240. So that's how we would do that for the miscellaneous or the individual expenses that are not necessarily done monthly, but they're still frequently. Okay. So that's once you complete this and you get this all filled out, you are going to come down here and you're going to arrive at a total number here. This is the total amount, this total of your overhead for your fixed costs and your variable costs, like weed eater and things like that, your weed eater twine, your oil for the weed eater and things like that, and different parts, like we even include like weed eater caps and things like that. So once you get all that filled out, you're going to come up here with the total figure. I divide this right here by the total number of by the total number of months that you work. So if you're going to work 7 months like we do here in Oklahoma, it's going to take this total number divided by 7 months, and that's how you get to 1320. So if you're someplace in the South where you work 10 months out of the year, you're going to divide this large number by 10. If you're up in the North where maybe you only work 5 months out of the year doing your regular visits, then you would divide that by 5. Okay. Now, Once you get this total big number here, and I'll go over here and show you a sample over here. Once you add up all of your expenses, like see, we have our general liability, our commercial insurance, storage, fuel, equipment fuel. This is where I use our CRM. We use Jobber, different softwares that we use. We're going to come up with a big number like this, $32,000, and divided by the 7 months, we have about $4,600 in expenses. Okay, we'll come back to this in a second. So once we get over here to this right side now we're going to look at how many hours per week you work. Typically, we want to stick with 40, and that's how many hours a week you're going to work. Now, depending on where you're at in the country, the number of weeks you work throughout the year may be kind of different. So we here in Oklahoma are going to work about 37 weeks. We normally start about the middle of March, and we'll mow and do applications and do all of our work through about the end of October. So once we get to the end of October, that adds up to about 37 weeks that we actually provide service. So what this is going to tell me now here, that if you mow 37 weeks and you plan to work about 40 hours a week, that's going to give you a total number of hours that you're going to work of about 1,480 hours. I hope this is clear so far, but what this is designed to do is to take all of the possible hours you have to work and divide it by the total and multiply it by the total number of weeks. So all the hours, which are going to be your weeks times 40 hours, and it's going to divide that by this total number of expenses. Once you do that, that's going to give you your overhead per hour. Now, this does not include your salary yet, so we still have one more step. So let's look at this sample over here. Look at this sample. This says that after I divide $32,000 in expenses by the 1,480 hours, I come up with $22.09 per hour. So if I divide up all the hours, all the expenses by all the hours, $22 for every single hour is what's going to cover my expenses. Now, depending on how many workers you have, let's jump back over here. Depending on how many workers you may have 2 workers, you may have just one helper. I normally have 2 helpers, so it's me and 2 other people. Pay about $16 an hour. Maybe yours is 12, it's 14 or whatever. But basically, take the hourly rate that you're going to pay them, multiply it by the number of workers, and this means $32 an hour is what you're going to pay. Now, add in your own rate. My hourly rate, I pay myself about $25 an hour is what I try and do just to keep something on the payroll. I'm set up as a LLC. I've taken the S classification, so there are some things of why I paid that rate. But once you add this up, you're going to see that 25 plus 32 plus your 624 is going to come out to a total overhead of $63.24. So in this case, what that means is that you need to earn at least $63.24 for every hour that your business is open and you're out operating, just to cover your expenses. So let's go over here and look at this other sample over here. So this is pretty high. I don't quite have 3. I don't know what example I was doing over here, but if we take 2 and we do 2 of them at 16, that's going to be $32 an hour. If I pay myself $25, that means my overhead has to be at about $79 per hour. Now, depending on where you're at in the country, that can be high, that could be low. But now I know if I'm going to spend 30 minutes on a lawn, I got to earn at least half of this just to cover my expenses and wages. All right. I kind of want to stop here and let you soak that in. Think about it. I'm going to pause this and make sure you don't have any questions about this. Okay, so now that you've kind of soaked that in, this $79 per hour, as I mentioned before, is that is the amount of income or amount of your business needs to generate for every hour that they are open. Keep in mind, there's still a tiny bit of fudge here that if you travel 30 minutes someplace to go get to a job, you really better consider that and make sure that you are going someplace to generate some significant income to make sure that that wage is covered, because you're not earning any money while you're driving. And remember, we want to try and keep this down to 40 hours. We don't want to be that person that's working 80 hours a week and our family doesn't get a chance to see us or anything like that, okay? So now that you have $79 an hour in this case, now we're going to take this and we're going to go over here to this customer list. This is where the magic starts to happen. So if you take this customer list, what you're going to do over here on this side, you're going to list all of your customers. Okay, these are some made up customers over here. But you got Matthew, you got Jacob, you got Terry, you got AJ. All right. When we go out to mow their lawn in this case, we charge this for Matthew's lawn. We charge 65 almost for AJ's lawn, 50 for Rector, and Jacob Bodman. I don't know what we charge here. Let's throw in 50 bucks. All right. So this is going to tell us what we charge per service. Remember, our man-hour goal over here, if I go back over here, our man-hour goal for our example was $79. So we want to put in 79 is what we want to charge for every hour. Okay. This over here, I just use this to enter in just kind of what we're charging for this season so January through the end for 2024. Sometimes if you have a contract, I'll enter in the number of weeks that we may have, like maybe we're going to do 5 weeks, or maybe it's going to be a project we're doing for 6 months or something like that. I just put that in there so that I have that, okay? Next over here, you want to measure their property. You can do that online. You can do that in different places with Google. You can use Sod Solutions is one of the websites that I use, but you want to measure the person's lawn, because what this is going to tell you when you begin adding up your times, whenever you come up to a property that, whenever you have a property that you've determined you're really profitable on, and you're able to look at the turf size and say, hey, this is 4,000 square feet. It only takes us 10 minutes to do it. This one doesn't have any hills. It's pretty flat. Or maybe it doesn't have a sidewalk, or it does have a sidewalk, but it takes us X amount of minutes. Now, as you go out and you look at other properties, if it's the same size and it does not have a sidewalk, you're going to know how long it typically takes you given your current setup. So that's the cool thing about this turf size. All right. So once you've entered in all of your customers, you've entered in how much you charge per service, and you know how much you want to how much you need to cover for your man hour. Now you're going to go over here to job input. So instead of clicking down here, what I want you to do is go over here to this individual and click here, go to job. Now it's going to take me to this job over here. So on this date, let's say it's the middle of June. It's June 1st. So we're not dealing with a lot of rain here in Oklahoma. It's pretty dry, and we're rocking and rolling. And we visited his property today, and we started at 3:57 to 4:31. This is another reason why you want to make sure you use a good CRM that you can enter in your start and stop times pretty easy. But it took us from 3:57 to 4:31, so that's a total of 34 minutes. This is what this calculator is going to calculate, how long it took you, and all you got to do is enter in the number of workers you had with you. So we had 2 workers with us. That actually comes out on a decimal to 1.13 hours. With 2 people, it's not just 34 minutes. It's actually going to be 68 minutes. So when you divide that out as a decimal, it comes out to 1.13. That comes out to an earned rate of $43.24. We didn't do too good. This 43 is lower than this 79. You see that? So what this is telling me is that in order to get my $79 an hour, I need to adjust his rate by $36. His new rate should be $85. Now, I know this guy's property. It's pretty small. I don't know if this was just something that we entered in as kind of a test, but there's no way this launch should have taken us 34 minutes to do. This property probably takes us more like 18 minutes to do, and I'm curious what kind if I enter in 18. Bingo. So if we enter in 18 minutes and it takes us 18 minutes to do it, our earned hourly rate is about $81.67. Now, this is good for this lawn. Just keep in mind, we're trying to make profit, not just cover our expenses. So this is where you want to make sure that you stack up a lot of lawns in this area so that you're going to minimize any travel time. You're going to minimize any downtime of when you get out of the truck, not dilly-dallying around and getting started on that lawn quickly. You can get started on that lawn quickly, and once you've done it 2 or 3 times, you start knocking this time down just a little bit over the course of that month, over the course of that year, you will begin to make significantly more money. So this just kind of gives you a way to look at your productivity, to look at your lawn and see how long it's taking you, whether or not you should add more people. So let's see on something like this, if it took us 18 minutes and we added a third person here, and let's say it only took us, believe it or not, a third person really does not reduce the time by that much, but let's say it took us 12 minutes if we added on a third person. What would happen there? We'd still just about barely make our profitability. But that's the cool thing about this. What I suggest you do during your down season now is take all of your customers, all of the times, enter them in here. And what you're going to see certain lawns that are just not profitable at all, or they're not near as profitable as you thought. You'll see others that are very profitable. You'll see some that are profitable throughout certain times of the season, depending on the weather change or depending on if you lost a worker or something like that. But that just arms you with tons of information so that then you're able to tell that customer, hey, you will know that in the rainy season, it takes you a little bit longer. You can't charge that same price. So maybe you average it out over the year and you raise it just enough to cover your profit still during the slower parts of the year. There are any number of things that you could do. There's tons of information that this calculator provides you, but the magic is that it arms you with information so that you know what to do. You know what to do on a lawn. Maybe you need to drop that one. Maybe you need to raise your price. Maybe you need to raise it, but kind of average it out over the year because of weather. Maybe once you find out what type of lawn you have, now you know which is your avatar lawn, your ideal customer that you need to seek out. It will also let you know if you got room to give a discount to maybe pick up a client in a certain area, so you can begin making inroads in that area. This is an awesome tool. We use it all the time, and it's one way to just make sure that we're covering our labor costs. And then I will also know which lawns are the most profitable. So hope you found this helpful. We're going to stop this now, but DM us if you have any questions. We'd love to answer any question you may have. Take care.